So good morning and welcome to Broker Briefing, Australia's premier digital platform for brokers and investors, live streaming video presentations from ASX listed companies. I'm Jane Morgan and thank you for joining me today for our February Mining and Resources Investor Webinar, live streaming across Zoom, YouTube, brokerbriefing.com, Twitter and Facebook. So today we'll be joined by 4 companies: Brightstar Resources, Warriedar Resources, Ora Gold and Intra Energy Corporation. So up first, we are joined by Brightstar Resources with the ticker code BTR, a company focused on their gold projects in the Laverton Greenstone Belt in Western Australia. So to tell us more, today I am joined by Managing Director, Alex Rivera. Good morning, Alex.
Morning, Jane. How are you doing?
Well, thank you. I'll let you bring up your presentation.
Excellent. Thank you. I'll jump on in. So thanks for everyone joining and thank you for the introduction, Jane. So my name is Alex Rivera. I'm Managing Director of Brightstar Resources. Diving straight into it. So we are a gold developer located in Western Australia. So Brightstar is located in the Laverton Tectonic Zone. We have just under 500,000 ounces of JORC resources currently on mining leases. We are currently in the midst of a merger with Kingwest Resources, KWR is the ticker, via a scheme of arrangement, essentially a merger of equals whereby Brightstar will end up with 57% of the merge co and Kingwest 43% of the merge group. That merger is scheduled to complete in April. What that does for us is deliver a combined JORC resource of nearly 1 million ounces in resources, all located on mining leases, all in Western Australia. So looking at the map here on the right-hand side, Brightstar is located in around the Laverton district and Kingwest is located down in Menzies. So that's the Goldfields Highway up to Leonora and Gwalia and across to Laverton. And the Brightstar project, we also have a processing plant on care and maintenance, circa 500,000 tonnes per annum. We have mining studies underway, which will be due for release as a scoping study in May and then moving straight into a pre-feasibility study. We've just launched a 6,000 metre RC drilling program up at Laverton, which I'll discuss in a moment, and Kingwest just announced a 1,000 metre RC program down at Menzies. What this merger really enables us is to become a material participant in the WA gold industry, really seeking to be the next gold developer, I suppose, on ASX after a suite of developments like Bellevue and Calidus are all in production now. The critical mass of just shy of 1 million ounces. Look, there's a lot of exploration upside there, so we're really hopeful we can grow that quite substantially organically and also assessing potential inorganic M&A opportunities. Just touching on the corporate overview. So for Brightstar as a standalone entity, we've got a market cap at 2 cents today of circa $17 million, a couple in the bank, so an EV of about circa $15 million. Pro forma basis, post-merger with Kingwest, we're circa market cap about $30 million. So for 1 million ounces and a plant on care and maintenance, we think that's pretty sensible value and with some substantial upside. Just touching on the board and management. So at Brightstar, I've just joined as managing director. I've been in the seat for about 1 month. Came out of investment banking, corporate finance for 10 years and geology background. Josh Hunt, executive chairman, is a lawyer, and Tony Luau works in finance. Through the merger with Kingwest, there's some substantial mining experience joining the team. So Dean Valve is the Chief Operating Officer at Kingwest. He just joined likewise about a month ago from Calidus and then Hot Chili. So Dean is a mining operator and done feasibility studies and built operations. So he's a great pair of hands to have in the business. John O'Dowd's currently Managing Director of Kaiser Reefs, a gold miner, in Victoria. So likewise a good resource to have in the business. Just touching on the regional overview, it's quite topical at the moment, what's happening in the regional consolidation. So looking from the southwest to begin with, you've got Kingwest here, as discussed, at the Menzies area. Moving up, you've got Genesis here in the light orangey pink, and then St Barbara, so they're merging at the moment to form Hoover House. Moving east, you've got Kin Mining in here, then Daisy, and obviously with the transaction with Genesis as well. So what's actually happening in this region is pretty dynamic. For us, it's really important to understand the regional context because the processing solutions in this district mean that having a processing hub out in the Laverton district is going to be really important. So for us, the work streams ahead is essentially just a production restart. So drill outs of all the deposits, working through feasibility studies and looking towards getting into production. Aspirationally, we'd like to have a PFS out by the end of this year and a DFS out in the first half of next year. that would enable construction opportunities and essentially mining to commence at the back end of next year. Just a quick focus and a zoom in on the Brightstar tenements. So as I said, this is Laverton right here. Cork Well is going to be the hub of our operations. It's currently a 250,000 ounce resource, significant exploration upside that I'll touch on. Given Brightstar's storied corporate history, there was a period of time, and it was previously known as Stone Resources, where essentially not one drill hole was drilled for nearly 10 years on any of these tenements. The previous company spent $60 million in debt building a plant and never actually turned it on in any anger. So that for us is a very large asset. The exploration upside's material, given it sat there dormant for 10 years. So Cork Well will be the baseload feed of the operations coming down south of Laverton, where the plant is located just here. We have 100,000 ounces immediately adjacent to the plant, and the Alpha deposit, which is just over 100,000 ounces at 2.3 grams, about 15 k's from the plant. So for us, what we'll be seeking to do is generate high circa 1 gram baseload feed out of Cork Well, and blend that with some 2 gram dirt coming out of Alpha. All these resources, are located on mining leases and all open along strike and at depth. So we're pretty keen to get in and get some drilling underway. This is the program that we've just kicked off, 6,000 meters, circa 30 holes at Cork Well. For us, this program is important. It's going to be targeting extensions and growing the resource, but also taking a lot of the inferred material into indicated, which will underpin the mining studies. There's kind of red triangles through here are all the drill collars that we're going to be drilling. This shape, mineralized shape here, as you can see, is the current resource. That's the 250,000 ounces. Essentially, this was mined in the 80s, so 40 odd years ago. This kind of beige shape underneath the drill collars is the waste dump. So what we see is a real opportunity to drill. Essentially, you can see where these are located, to really infill this gap where the resource stops here and where it is up here. So that's circa 500 meters of strike that's never had a drill hole. So we're really excited to kind of get in there and do these ones. These holes through here are important to infill this area where the resource kind of pinches out a little bit. So Brightstar released an announcement on the 20th of December last year. There was a drill hole collared just butted up against the waste dump. They hit 6 meters at 3 grams. That importantly was about 100 meters vertically below the resource in that area and 150 meters along strike. So for me, that tells you that the mineralized structure is still live. That's ore grade, which means we'll be able to add some ounces through that little area there. So as I mentioned, this is 250,000 ounces. This will be the baseload feed. Aspirationally, we think this could grow quite substantially. Notwithstanding, there's also significant kind of regional upside as well. There's a prospect 2 k's to the north called Delta 2, which we're excited to get back out and drill. We think could have the potential for a maiden resource as well this year. So touching on the processing infrastructure that we do have south of Laverton, as I said, it's just shy of a 500,000 tonne per annum throughput, been on care and maintenance since 2014. This ball mill was installed in 2014 and never turned on. Brand new gravity circuit here, never turned on. A substantial amount of capital was spent here. So this photo was taken about 18 months ago by Como engineers. They did a refurb and restart study for Brightstar. That placed a capex of $5.5 million to turn it back on to a 650,000 tonne per annum plant. For us, taking a step back, if you back solve what a head grade going through the plant would look like, essentially you'd be a circa 35,000 ounce gold producer. And in this current market, look, that's subscale and that's not going to make any sense. So what we're doing is we've got GR Engineering, Greza are in there doing a refurb and restart study at the moment, but really assessing the capital requirements and time it's going to take it maybe to 1 million tonnes or even 1.5 million tonnes. And aspirationally, that would take us to north of 100,000 ounce gold producer. This is a photo I took about a fortnight ago from the ROM pad, looking to the crushing circuit in the foreground, ball mills here and the tanks. We've also got some substantial non-processing infrastructure. We've got a 60-person accommodation camp, an airstrip, light vehicles and the like. So for us, this has got a significant and demonstrable replacement cost. Look, it's substantial. We've done a lot of work on what we think it's kind of worth in the current market. For us, it also enables a pretty significant time saving for a restart operation. So for us, we're not a greenfields developer. We're not going to need $150 to $200 million to get back into production. It's going to be a low capex restart. Just quickly diving into the Kingwest Resources side of the picture. So this is the company that we're currently merging with. As I mentioned, they're just around Menzies. Menzies was historically a super high grade gold field, mined 800,000 ounces at just shy of 20 grams. we think this is an opportunity to really deliver grade to the plant. You can see on the next slide, I'll touch on it now, some of the hits, 5 at 8, 2 at 9, 5 at 10, all really shallow. In December last year, they announced a 45,000 ounce resource at 5.2 grams in a shallow pit within their overall global resource. So this has got a very real opportunity to blend 3, 4, 5 gram dirt from Menzies and taking it all out to Laverton. By road, it's circa 250 kilometres. The current quotes we're getting for trucking, circa 15 cents per tonne per kilometre, is about a $37 to $40 haul. In gold equivalent parlance, that's about half a gram of gold. So if we can get stuff out of the ground at Menzies for 3 grams or north, it's really going to deliver to the plant about 0.5 of a gram less than that based on the trucking costs. Just quickly touching on the regional consolidation I touched on. This is really important for us when we look at what's happening in the district. So Dacian Gold's just put Mount Morgan's on care and maintenance. That's a 3 million tonne per annum plant that's now taken out of the picture. If Hoover House completes with Genesis and St Barbara, essentially Gwalia is going to be full from next year with the Ulysses dirt and the Gwalia underground. So at the moment, St Barbara and Gwalia are toll treating a lot of opportunities in the district. That's now going to be off the table for third-party processing. Mount Morgan's is turned off. There's no opportunities to go through Sunrise or Grannies. So essentially, for us, we look at this district and say, well, if we can have a plant up and running that's circa 1.5 million tonnes per annum, this whole kind of district through here, it really opens up some toll treating and toll milling opportunities for stranded juniors, and also some other opportunities from an M&A perspective. And for us, that's quite important. Just lastly, touching on the peer comparisons, look, we think, like everyone, we're quite cheap, trading at circa $30 per ounce. As you can see, we've got significant infrastructure that underpins what we're looking to try and do. Looking at this peer comps, there's some great companies here with good assets, but almost all of them are going to be greenfields developments. They're all going to need $150, $200 million to build. We're going to be orders of magnitude less than that. So we'll be essentially the next cab off the rank after Black Cat, I'd imagine, after their Coyote and Paulson's operations, to be the next gold producer on the ASX. So on that note, I'll just leave the summary slide up here and hand it back to Jane.
Alex, thanks so much for the great presentation. I might actually get you to stop sharing your screen just so we can see you properly, but we've had a few questions that have come through. This one's actually from a Twitter follower. So in addition to the 5.5 mil in refurbishment costs, do you have an estimate on the CapEx costs associated with going into production?
It's a good question. That's what we've got GR Engineering doing the work on at the moment. And it really comes down to a function of how large we'd like to make this mill, Jane. So if we, as I said, that 5.5 was circa 18 months ago. So in this current inflationary environment, look, it's probably, that number itself is probably 7 or 8, I would have thought. But it really comes down to how large we'd like to make it. And given the infrastructure we've got on site, like, it's not going to be a large number. It's maybe an additional large ball mill, been on the crushing circuit, and additional tanks, and the tanks are relatively cheap. So we'll have a good handle on that by May when the scoping study from GR Engineering is released.
Thanks, Alex. And just mindful of time, what can shareholders look forward to over the next 3 to 6 months?
Yeah, so I suppose the exploration on both sides. So certainly at Brightstar, we've kicked off a 6,000 metre RC drilling program. As I said, we're straight into a feasibility study or scoping study, due for release in May. So we'll have drilling results essentially from April onwards. The merger should complete in April, scoping study to come out into May, and that'll go straight into a pre-feasibility study. So for us, we'd like to know where we stand by mid-year in terms of what the operation would look like and where we can take this project.
Perfect. Well, look, that is all we have time for today. There are a few other questions that have come through, but I'll encourage webinar attendees to reach out via the contact details on the bottom of the ASX releases. But Alex, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Jane.
So up next, we have a presentation from Warriedar Resources, a company which is changing its name from Innova Metals. To tell us more about their gold projects in WA and Nevada, today I'm joined by Managing Director Amanda Buckingham. How are you, Amanda? Oh, you're just on mute.
Very well, thank you, Jane. Good
Wonderful. Thanks for coming. We'll bring up your presentation.
Thank you. Thanks, Jane. Warriedar Resources is an exploration company that people don't know enough about at the moment, and there's a good reason for that. Yesterday, we completed an important project acquisition in WA, and part of that, as Jane mentioned, was a name change from Nova Metals to Warriedar Resources. Now, I believe this new project that we have in WA will give us the opportunity for immediate and significant growth, and I will go through today and tell you why I believe that. Next slide, please. Thanks, Jane. Welcome to Warriedar. That's actually a statement that the team and I have been looking forward to saying for a long time. This deal has been several months in the making. We completed yesterday and we are delighted to be now on the ground drilling and moving ahead with the project. So we now hold two projects, both in Tier 1, world-renowned global mining provinces. We have one project in Nevada and one in Western Australia. Both of them are right alongside producing mines. In Nevada, we have just over 1 million ounces of gold, and in WA, we have just under 1 million ounces in our existing resource. So our total resource base at the moment is 2 million ounces of gold, but we are focused on rapidly building those resources. We have the team in place to do that. We've just completed a capital raise, so we're well funded. And we have committed to drilling 40,000 metres on our WA projects this year. And we will be providing a mineral resource update mid-year. So there's a lot happening and we are definitely hitting the ground running. Next slide, please. The path to here. Creating a premium exploration business does not happen overnight. About a year ago, we set ourselves a new strategy. We wanted to hold two projects in Tier 1 jurisdictions with clear upside potential, and that is exactly where we're at today. The first stage of our process was to appoint an exploration manager in Nevada. We realised that the only way to explore Nevada is to be in Nevada, on the ground. So Steve McMillan is managing that operation for us, and it's working well. I came in as MD last year, and we brought Mark Connolly on. Now, Mark Connolly has a great track record of growing shareholder value. He's going to be instrumental in us moving this project forward and getting into development. He's also got a great sense of humour, which is very important in this game. As I mentioned, we just completed a $9 million capital raise, so we are well funded, and we completed the acquisition of our two projects in WA yesterday, Golden Range and Fields Find, and I will show you them. Part of the process was a share consolidation, and we also welcomed Dr. Jimin Chen to our board. Our name change to Warriedar Resources is combined with an ASX ticker code change to WA8. Now, at the moment, we are still trading as AWB. That should be officially changed on Monday. Next slide. Let me show you where we are. Now, this is our new project, Golden Range and Fields Find. And you can see on the left, there are two packages. The Golden Range package is the long, skinny one. That is actually where most of our 1 million ounce gold resource sits. The second project, Fields Find, is more circular in shape. It's got a very interesting layered intrusive complex, and one of the gold resources occurs on that project on the eastern side. Both of the projects sit right in the middle of the richly mineralised Murchison province. Now, it's an excellent neighbourhood. We are surrounded by operating and profitable mines. We have a commanding land package. There's over 800 square kilometres, and we have 70 kilometres of strike. So it is a remarkable package, and we believe there's a lot of upside potential, with the drilling that we're going to carry on this year. Next slide, please. So where are we at right now and where are we headed? Well, right now we are drilling on site. Drilling actually started in mid-January. As part of the acquisition deal, the vendor had to carry out a drilling program. So we are well into that program. We've drilled at least 4,700 metres at our first key resource extension target called Wind and Well. That is going really well. The rig will stay on site. In fact, it will stay on Golden Range the entire year. We are expecting assay results possibly by the end of next week, with a commitment to having most of them from this first program by the end of the quarter. So results are imminent. We've got a second rig mobilising to site to fields find mid-March, and that rig will focus on drilling Barron, one of the gold resources that we have on that project. So our goal, our target is to increase our mineral resource significantly. We're focused on high-grade free milling gold. We've got a target of 2 million ounces by the end of next year. We believe that is achievable. Ambitious, but certainly achievable. In parallel with our gold search, we believe there's significant opportunities for base metals, particularly copper, across the project. And we've already flown a significant airborne EM survey over the ground targeting copper. So this year, we are committed to drilling 40,000 metres, and we are well funded to do that. Next slide. So what sort of infrastructure do we have? What does the site actually look like? Well, you can see here, the actual site was an operating mine until 2019 when it was put onto care and maintenance. So we have an existing plant configured only to process soft oxide ore. So if we go into production using this plant, there's a clear pathway to accelerate that process. Our approach at the moment is that we are not constrained by that mill and its capacities. We have removed that constraint entirely, and we are looking across the entire project for as much gold as possible. But what this does give us, the plant, there's a significant camp. I think it's, 160-person camp. There's a really comfortable air-conditioned office, a haul road. There's all the infrastructure you need to actually be based on site and explore from site. Our geos are all based on site. So we've got great infrastructure, and it just means we can fast track our exploration. Next slide, please. This is the cross section that I really enjoy showing because it's a really good representation of the opportunity. Now we have about 31 pits along our main belt. 10 resources. This is one of them, Wind and Well, and this is where we have just been drilling. Now you can see that the existing resource, the brown in the cross section, it extends to just the top of the fresh zone. Across the entire area, there has been hardly any deep drilling because the focus was on the shallow soft oxide layer that could be provided as fill for the mill. So previous explorers did not look at the fresh zone at all, and in fact, all the drilling is very shallow. Any deeper drilling that exists generally extends the ore bodies, which is quite remarkable. You can see that here at Wind and Well. We've got this ore body extending for at least another 100 metres. So we have been drilling here with assay results expected hopefully next week. Removing that constraint has opened entirely this search space for us. We also know that deposits in the area tap deep, so we've got a good reason to believe that most of these deposits extend at depth. And we've also done our targeting, and we know there's significant targets elsewhere. We've got a solid pipeline of resource extension, brownfields and greenfields targets to drill. So it's an incredible opportunity for us. Next slide, please. I like to show this slide. This is the Austin pit at the northern end of our tenure. You can see the grey arrow shows you where Austin is. As I said, the drilling is shallow. I think the average depth is 40 metres. So we are going to extend the drilling and explore depth extensions to these resources. Next slide, please. Fields Find. So this is the project over on the eastern side with a layered ultramafic complex, and it's really quite unique. It's completely messed up from a geological perspective, and that is exactly what you want for targeting. We've got on the eastern side, we've got Barron, our gold resource. And on the western side, what we're calling the Warriedar corridor, we've got a historic copper mine, we've got 2 historic gold mines, and we've got an entire corridor of elevated gold and copper and even nickel. Now, do we understand it all entirely yet? Absolutely not. But we believe there's significant upside here, both in terms of the gold and the base metal. We will be drilling here from mid-March. We've also just completed a airborne survey on the eastern side, in terms of the base metal
Oh, Amanda, I might just cut in there. Your sound seems to have gone a bit funny. Do you want to just run through this slide again?
Sure, certainly. So this is our field sign project. Its potential is, actually, look, it's a gold play, but there's also a lot of potential for base metals here. We've got an existing gold resource on the eastern side called Barron, and on the western side, we've got the Warriedar corridor, which has a whole host of elevated gold, copper, and nickel, as well as some historic gold and copper mines. So we will be drilling here from mid-March, and we look forward to unraveling the story and working out what's going on. It's an extremely interesting area. Next slide, please. I just want to touch on the copper opportunity because previous explorers have only focused on gold. Now, we believe there's significant potential for base metals, especially copper. The reason we say that, the first reason is Golden Grove, WA's best copper mine and arguably a world-class VMS system, is 3 kilometres from our tenure. The same rocks that host Golden Grove track into our ground. Along the main belt, just to our south, is Capricorn Metals' Mount Gibson Gold Project. Now, that started its life as a base metal deposit and the gold was overprinted later. So our belt is well endowed with base metals. We've even got a historic copper mine on our ground. So we are chasing the base metal potential in parallel with the gold. And we will be drilling copper targets this year. Next slide. I put this slide in because I really like what this shows us about the entire province. Now, our resources are shallow and there's limited deep drilling. What we know from the area is that most of the mines in the area tap deep. Golden Grove has been mined at 1,800 metres below ground, Mount Magnet 1,400. Mount Gibson, the mineralisation goes down to almost 1 kilometre. We know the gold taps deep. In terms of our tenure, we have no understanding of how deep these deposits are. They are open entirely at depth, and that's an incredible opportunity for us. Next slide. In summary, our global resource portfolio, we have 2 million ounces of gold, and we plan to grow that significantly this year. Next slide. I should touch on Big Springs. Big Springs is our project in Nevada. Now, for those who don't know Nevada, Nevada is an incredible place for gold. The individual deposits can be up to 20, 30, even 40 million ounces. Our Big Springs project sits immediately north of the Jarrett Canyon mine. This is owned by First Majestic Silver. It has produced over 10 million ounces of gold. And in a classic Carlin sense, the deposits occur as clusters. Now, our project only has the Big Springs 1 million ounce resource. We believe there is a cluster of deposits. We have done all the work over the last few years to work up the ground, and we are ready to drill these targets. Having the WA project gives us a bit of optionality and flexibility in terms of what we do. We can move our team from WA to Nevada as required, and this project at the moment requires a permit to allow us to drill closer to Jarrett Canyon. So we are still extremely bullish on our Big Springs project, but our focus at the moment will be on WA. Next slide. This is our board. I believe we have a fantastic board, and our market cap at the moment is about 90 mil, and we have cash to fund our program. Next slide. Where are we going? What does our year look like? I think this is a good summary of what we're doing. We've got 1 rig at the moment on site, and we plan to keep that there all year. We've got a 2nd rig turning up mid-March to drill at Fields Find. We've got a diamond rig scheduled for both this half of the year and the next to do our deeper drilling and also our met testing on one of our deposits. And we're planning to do a resource update both mid-year and at the end of the year. A lot happening. Next slide. In summary, we now have 2, I believe, to be fantastic projects, both in Tier 1 pro-mining jurisdictions. They are underexplored properties. They're ripe for modern targeting and drilling. We have a plan to drill 40,000 metres in Australia this year, and we are well funded to actually deliver on these assets. Thank you. Next slide. I look forward to keeping everyone updated on our progress, and that's Mick, our head fieldy on site. We're very pleased that we completed our acquisition yesterday, and we look forward to the drilling results that are imminent. Thank you.
Amanda, thanks so much for the great presentation. We've got a couple of questions, so I'll jump into them. So in terms of the resource upgrade, you mentioned you were targeting 2 million ounces. So can you please confirm if this is based on the entire 40,000 metre drilling program?
Actually, no. The 40,000 metres is what we plan to drill this year. The 2 million ounce resource is our target for the end of next year. And so like with any exploration program, there needs to be gated decision points. So our target of 2 million ounces, I think, is achievable. It's ambitious, but achievable. But the 40,000 metres is what we're committed to drilling this year.
Wonderful. And just so with the existing plant, has the company looked into the costs associated with the restart?
We've done some preliminary costings. We had Optiro come in and have a look. We're going to do that properly. I don't want to mention numbers yet because we don't have a proper study, but I'd like to say that in parallel with building our resource, we will know we're going to explore all options to commercialise these assets so that when the time is right, we will make the right decision for shareholders.
Perfect. Well, Amanda, thank you again for joining us on Broker Briefing, and we look forward to further updates.
Thanks, Jane.
So next up, we have a presentation from Ora Gold with the ticker code OAU, a company which has renewed growth strategy and re-energised team focused on its advanced gold projects in WA. To tell us more, I am joined by the CEO, Alex Passmore. How are you, Alex?
Hi there, Jane. Yes, very well. It's a pleasure to be presenting Ora Gold today. So we're actually undertaking a transaction that will see me become the CEO, I think on the 9th of March. So my title is proposed CEO for the minute, but we're expecting that transaction to complete without issue. So it is a pleasure to be presenting Ora Gold this morning. Ora Gold used to be called Thunderlara Exploration, which many of you may have heard of. Thunderlara was founded by Phil Crabb around 20 years ago, and Phil is a well-known West Australian goldfields operator. He's a mine manager, his own drilling companies. He's credited with the discovery of the million-ounce Yalgarra Star project near Southern Cross, and so Phil has been successfully running Thunderlara for many years. He's now reached a retirement point, and hence my involvement coming in more recently. So I've been working with Ora since late last year to gain an understanding of the project at Garden Gully, which is a high-grade advanced project surrounded by operating mills. Ora Gold, has under the Thunderlara banner, it was very busy. It had projects around Australia, but over time it's transitioned into just focusing on the Garden Gully Gold Project, which has got gold and a copper prospect, but many gold prospects. And so it's a simple new structure and a simple new company focused on WA gold, which is shallow, high grade, and surrounded by mills. So when looking at the Garden Gully project, which is just here, just to the north of Meekatharra, 20 kilometres to the north of Meekatharra, what attracted me to the project is it sits in the Abbott's Greenstone Belt, which is a very underdone greenstone belt, and to the north of Westgold's Q operations, and just to the west of the Andy Well project. The belt has been owned by piecemeal by several different companies, and Ora Gold now has a dominant position in the belt. There's a range of prospects. The Crown Prince prospect is the most advanced of these. And there's super high grades, very shallow, and also extending down to around 250 meters depth from surface. And frankly, the market hasn't even isn't aware of the high grade and the high return potential for this project. So I'm joining. We're raising money, cleaning up the balance sheet, and then pushing forward with the Garden Gully project. So just turning to the corporate situation on Ora. We've got a very experienced board. So Rick Crabb's our chairman. Rick's on the board of Paladin and Leo Lithium. Got Mal Randall, who's on the board of Argosy and Hastings. I'm joining. I've got a long track record in the resources sector, both on the finance side, but also running companies. Our plan from here is to build out the team, progress Garden Gully, and then look at how we can get Crown Prince into production in the not so distant future. As I was saying earlier, I think that Crown Prince and Garden Gully, not many people in the market have heard of it, which is very much undeserving given how high grade it is. So just running quickly through the transaction that we're undertaking, which will close in early March. So at the moment, the company's embarked on a 3-for-1 renounceable rights issue to clear debt that was on the balance sheet that was provided by Phil Crabb over years. And Phil funded the company during some pretty difficult markets over the last year, and so that's where that debt comes from. But we would rather move forward, funded by equity, and so the rights issue allows us to do that. So we'll emerge from this transaction with an 11.8 million market cap, 3.3 in net cash, an aggressive drilling program planned to start in March, and then resource updates to follow after that. We've been supported by Canaccord Genuity, and they've been strong supporters, and they're driving this transaction as well. So I come to Ora Gold having most recently run Rox Resources. Rox is a gold explorer and developer in WA. It's very relevant to the Ora Gold the Ora Gold situation. I brought in the You&Me Gold project into Rox around 4 years ago, and we progressed that pretty strongly. So we went from a 1.2 million ounce resource to a 3.2 million ounce resource. That's really nearing a development decision now. Big project, and we would like to do something similar or if not better at Ora Gold. So the other I guess relevant things to the Ora Gold that very much attracted me to the company was the scale of the belt and the size of the belt, and that there are base metal prospects in here as well. So we look forward very much to seeing what we can do at the AWST Greenstone Belt more broadly. So turning to Garden Gully in a little bit more detail. So north of Meekatharra, 20 kilometre long belt. The very large scale Abenaki shear zone runs up to the northeast southwest, striking through the project, and just to the south of the Crown Prince project. Meekatharra is a very good place to operate. Easy access for us. We've got sheds and offices in Meekatharra. Easy to get drillers, easy to get samples in and out from site. So just looking at that geology in a little bit more detail. So it sits in its own greenstone belt called the AWST Greenstone Belt. Here's Andy Well. Now Crown Prince, to me, the closest comparison is an Andy Well. So it's a high grade tension vein, an echelon stepping veins in a greenstone belt, quartz vein hosted, very simple metallurgy, footside alteration on the hanging wall and the footwall, which is very similar to Andy Well, and very simple metallurgy. There's a small resource there now, around 55,000 ounces at 3.6 grams. I don't believe that reflects the potential scale of the project. That is only one central vein, and we can see we've identified around 5 en echelon stepping veins now, and so that resource is down to only 100 meters in one of those central veins, very much underdone, so we're likely to see that grow. So Crown Prince is the most advanced project in the belt. In terms of the other projects that we're very interested in and we will be focusing on in the upcoming drilling program is Lydia, which is a gold prospect, which is 1.5 kilometers away from Crown Prince. So Lydia doesn't have a resource on it. It's a slightly different style of geology. It's based around a north-south trending shear zone, and is open at depth. And then the third project that we'll be focused on, the third prospect that we'll be focused on, is AWST. So just turning to Crown Prince in a little bit more detail, you can see here the en echelon stepping veins that I mentioned. So the resource is just on this vein. That the 55,000 ounces is just a shallow resource sitting on this vein. So you can see that that the ore body is very much open in terms of its endowment with these veins occurring in an echelon stepping manner. Our recent drilling program has returned some super high grades from shallow depths, so 20 meters at 15 grams from 30 meters, and these veins are not in the current resource. So that's where we'll be focused in our drilling program that's starting in March. just looking at the depth potential of Crown Prince. So you can see here our deepest hit, 8 meters at 22 from 260 meters. It shows that the mineralization extends well below, the supergene enrichment zone, and there's barely any drilling around those high grades. So we look forward to getting stuck into those as well. Lydia, which I mentioned, is 1.5 kilometers to the southwest of Crown Prince. Shallow mineralization, very much open. This is a tension gas mineralization based on a north-south trending shear zone. Pretty common sort of geology for an Archean greenstone belt. We've got some very, very high grades. You can see 12 at 5, 7 at 116, yet to be put into a resource. So we look forward to following those up. The AWST prospect, which is in the northern end of the belt, different geology to Crown Prince and Lydia again. This gold mineralization here is centered on a north-south trending shear zone, which is one of those controlling structures that we see at Crown Prince. And you can see here some pretty spectacular grades from surface. So 4 at 14, 4 at 10, 3 at 17, all shallow, yet to be looked at in terms of how that would report to resource. So this is the third prospect that we'll be drilling at. So our strategy with Ora, restructure the balance sheet, undertake the capital raising that's fully underwritten by Canaccord. We'll emerge with an 11.8 million market cap, 3.3 in net cash, clean balance sheet, well funded for our short-term drilling program. We'll build the project up to a more commercial scale, and we've got the drill target sitting there, and it's about expanding the mat depth and along strike. We are in a busy area. So north of Mika, we have West Gold, we have Mika Minerals. It's an interesting area. There's plenty of toll milling opportunities if that's the way we decided to go. Obviously, we're very hopeful of getting a scale to this project that would allow us to have our standalone project. So just a little bit on the key dates to the transaction. So any existing Ora shareholders that are on this call, feel welcome. You're welcome to ring up directly or email me directly to ask about the transaction. The offer closes in early March, and is fully underwritten by Canaccord. So with that, I'll hand back to Jane.
Alex, thanks so much. I'll just get you to stop sharing your screen and I'll jump into some questions. So I know you touched on this briefly. However, we had a couple of questions about what has attracted you most to the company?
So I've known, Rick Crabb and Mal Randall I've known for many years, and they've got a long track record of success. So a very experienced board with a high grade project that's simple, and in WA, and can be taken forward very quickly.
Thank you. And then what else can shareholders look forward to over the next sort of 3 to 6 months?
Sure. So, the key thing for us is a 3,500 metre RC program, 1,500 metres of diamond at Crown Prince and Lydia and AWST, resource upgrades to follow. So that'll be a highlight for the next 6 months and just watching that resource grow.
Thank you, Alex. Well, as a shareholder myself, I'm looking forward to it. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure. Thanks, Jane.
So next up, we have a presentation from Intra Energy Corporation with the ticker code IEC, a company focused on mineral exploration and development for the future. To tell us more, I'm joined by Managing Director, Ben Dunn. Hello, Ben.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Jane. How are you?
Well, thank you. Let me bring up your presentation.
Thank you very much.
When you're ready.
Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are today. Thank you for your time. I'm Benjamin Dunn. I'm here to talk about Intra Energy Corporation, which is now exploring for new energy metals in the Yalgarra area of West Australia. Next slide, please, Jane. Thank you very much. So, IEC, as we affectionately know it, has a long history, was originally a uranium explorer and then became a coal miner in Tanzania and Eastern Africa. I joined 2 years ago in May 2021 with the purpose of recapitalising and redirectionalising the company, getting it out of Africa and certainly out of coal, back into Australia, where our shareholders were really advocating that we needed to be, and certainly looking at opportunities. And we certainly heard what our shareholders were saying and what the market was saying in general, out of coal and into battery materials. So the board identified a number of opportunities, and through a partnership with New Century, some geologists based in Western Australia, we identified an opportunity, an exploration opportunity at Yalgarra in central Western Australia. We liked this opportunity because there was some work being done around it, but largely an unexplored area with potential for a company making discovery. Next slide, please, Jane. So we currently have just a tick over 700 million shares on issue. Share price, we feel, has underperformed the exploration work that we've done recently. We did a small raising at the back end of last year. We have sufficient cash in hand for what we're going to be doing over the next 6 months and driving the company forward. We have a fairly tight register. The board management is strongly supportive of the company and has put their money where their mouth is. The top 10 shareholders are all very supportive and are nearly 50%, and the top 20 shareholders equate to about 60% of the company. So we've got strong support for the direction that we're taking. We're well backed. And next slide, please, Jane. So Graham Robertson is the chairman. Some of you may know Graham. He has a long history in mining, a long successful history in mining, particularly in the Asian region and now in Africa. Graham brought me on to change the direction of the company, realising that coal mining was not the future, and certainly not the future for this company. We narrowed the board down at the end of last year from 5 to 3, and the other director besides myself and Graham is Alan Fraser, who brings over 30 years of mining experience to the board, and certainly represents shareholders strongly as a non-executive director. Next slide, please, Jane. The other key members of the team are Ed Boltus and Steve Hart from New Century. They identified the Yalgarra Project, both with outstanding resumes and strong geological experience, both geologists, and they identified this project, brought it to us, and we were delighted to partner up with them, and Jack Rosagro, our company secretary. Next slide, please, Jane. So as I've said, the strategic direction of the company was to exit fossil fuels and also to exit Africa. We had quite a good project in Tanzania, but the company was never able to make it work, and clearly coal wasn't the future. We managed to sell that asset 12 months ago to a mining entrepreneur in Tanzania for $2 million and assumption of the debt within the subsidiary companies. That deal is still, unfortunately, waiting for final approval from the Tanzanian government. We've received half of the consideration, $1 million US. There's another $1 million US due to us, and we're hopeful and expectant that that will come to us in the near future. So we're working with the purchaser and the Tanzanian government for completion of the sale, and we expect that hopefully will happen in the coming months. We have a small interest in a gold project in Mozambique. Unfortunately, that's been impacted by terrorist activity in northern Mozambique. We haven't been able to complete any work on that, and we're now looking at our options there, with probably the likelihood that we'll unload that and just wholly focus on our Australian operations. Next slide, please, Jane. So our flagship operation is at Yalgarra, which is 125 kilometres east of Kalbarri in Western Australia. We like this project. We think it has excellent mineralisation. We own 70% of the licence. It's a large area. It covers about 400 square kilometres in total in 2 blocks. We were attracted to it by the fact that the area hadn't been explored, but there is now work going on around us. And we're particularly excited about the opportunity for copper in particular, and nickel, cobalt, and platinum group elements. Next slide, please, Jane. So the initial work that's been undertaken by our neighbours, Todd River, S2 and Ozquest amongst them. We also have Chalice to our southern boundary. It's not their flagship operation, but they're certainly interested in this area as an extension north of their Julimar operations. We've undertaken our airborne surveys and targeted particularly a series of ultramafic rocks within our licence, which we think are starting to bear, really starting to bear some fruit with the exploration work that we're doing there. Next slide, please, Jane. So as I said, the airborne electromagnetic AEM survey has been completed. We identified 13 compelling conductors across the 2 blocks, across the entire licence. We've now also completed our soil geochemistry sampling, and the initial results back from the northern block have identified 3 high quality target areas. We've named these as Yallarong South, Hillside and Birtwell. Yallarong South is particularly exciting to us, and further work's about to be undertaken there. Unexpectedly, in the northern part of the northern block, we've identified some lithium anomalies, and we're doing some further work on those. Next slide, please, Jane. So the lithium results which we announced last week to the market, we weren't expecting this. The geologists were surprised because we originally thought that the host rocks weren't conducive to lithium anomalism. Some further work was done, and then we resampled the holes, and they came back much stronger than we had originally anticipated. We've taken some rock chips from what we think are possible pegmatites, and they've been submitted for analysis. And this, I think, will be the focus of our exploration in the next quarter. This we think is most exciting. Next slide, please, Jane. We have another project in New South Wales. We've identified it as the Louth project. It's north of Cobar. There's been some historical work done there. We picked this up because there was 5 high quality drill targets, and we think that there's a strong likelihood for copper in the area. There's similar sorts of rocks that we're seeing just south in Cobar, and particularly it's very similar to the project that Aeris has at Tritton. Significant historical work. We've resampled it and came back with elevated mineralisation. We'd expected to drill this last year, but the floods in New South Wales had prevented any further work being done on that. But it is a target that we intend to work later this year, and we're working with the local landowners to get permission and get in and drill those targets, because we think that it's something that's not only interesting, but we can reasonably quickly assess. Next slide, please, Jane. So in summary, we've undertaken a fairly significant transformation and directional change of the company. We've gotten out of Africa, we've moved back into Australia, we've gotten out of coal, out of fossil fuels, and we are now really strongly exploring for battery materials, particularly copper, nickel, platinum group elements and lithium. We have 2, what we believe are very exciting opportunities. We've identified some very strong targets, both in Western Australia and New South Wales, and we'll be looking to advance those projects as this year unfolds. Our core focus is now clearly on base and precious metals exploration, and obviously to support the global decarbonisation and re-electrification move that is going on globally. Exploration is underway, which we think will create strong news flow, and we continue to assess both the opportunities that we have and other opportunities that are being presented to us. Next slide, please, Jane. That's my details. I look forward to taking any questions, and thank you very much for your time today. Thank you, Jane.
Ben, thank you so much for the great presentation. A few questions that have come through. So is the company looking at further project acquisitions?
We're certainly assessing opportunities that are being presented to us. We think that the projects we have, particularly Yalgarra, are very, very exciting. Unfortunately, we haven't quite got the traction for the results that we've generated so far. Like all companies, things are presented to us, and if they're of value and we think that they will generate extreme shareholder value, then we'd act on them.
Wonderful. And what should shareholders look forward to over the next sort of 3 to 6 months?
Yeah, so we're just finalising our budget and exploration plans for Yalgarra. I think that we'll probably focus on the lithium in the northern block and also the Yallarong South project in the west, which we think is very exciting for a possible copper resource. So I think that as the exploration unfolds, shareholders will be excited by the results that we bring in, and also if we get the opportunity to drill at the Louth project in New South Wales, once the ground dries out and we've got an opportunity to get on there, I think that could be quite exciting as well.
Wonderful. Well, Ben, thank you so much for joining us today. And if we've got any webinar attendees who have further questions, please feel free to reach out by the contact details on the bottom of the ASX releases. But
Thank you very much, Jane. Thank you. Have a great day.
And thank you all for joining us today. Recordings of today's presentations will be available online in the coming days on both brokerbriefing.com and YouTube. We look forward to hosting you next time.